welcome to Stupid Little Games, the podcast where we talk about all things gaming from the inside out. Each week, I sit down with a guest from various parts of the gaming industry, and we chat about our current gaming obsessions. We tell stories from projects past or present, if we can talk about it. You know how that goes. And then we're going to play a stupid little game that I have written specifically for each guest. I'm Jess, by the way. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate everybody who comes back and listens. We have some people in Russia that listen. We have some people in Jamaica that listen. So hello to all of you folks out there. Speaking of guests, so, it's not every day that I get to talk to someone that's working on arguably the most popular video game in the world. So I'm going to try not to be a huge dork about it, but I'm probably going to fail. But that's okay. He's a 20-plus year veteran of the gaming industry. He's worked at Microsoft. He's worked at Bungie. He's worked at CCP Games. And currently, you can find him as creative lead on a little franchise known as Minecraft at Mojang. He's also Icelandic, which, in my opinion, Iceland is like the greatest place in the entire world. And I will just gush about Iceland for an hour if you let me. So please welcome the incredibly rad Orvar Halldorsson.
Hey, thank you. Wow.
Welcome.
Such a flattering intro.
I told you I was going to say nice things about you.
Yeah.
But you're also like super nice dude, and I'm really excited to talk to you. I'm also a little nervous just because I started the podcast 3 or 4 months ago, and most of the folks that I have talked to are people that I've either worked with at some point or know and I've met, but I've started to branch out to people that other people have introduced me to. There's this is a really cool person and they would be great to be on the podcast. So it's I haven't met you in real life, but we're going to be meeting soon at GDC that I'm super excited about. So if any of the listeners out there are going to be at GDC, hit me up and we can chat. I'm going to have my little microphone doing some current obsessions with folks at GDC. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm delighted. I'm just excited to get a chance to chat more with you, and I'm excited to meet you in person at GDC this year. So yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled. Thank you so much.
Of course. Do you have any plans? What are your sort of tracks that you do at GDC? Because I'm still figuring out what the hell I'm going to be doing, and I have no clue mostly.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was kind of early in career in the industry, I was really excited about GDC. I saw it as such a big potential to learn more in my craft. At the time when I lived in Iceland, it was a bit of an investment for the company that would be sending me. And so we had this kind of a system in place where it's you would send a certain amount of people every year and then you couldn't go again for a few years after. So I got a chance to go, but then, by the time that it would have been my time again, I'd already moved on to a different company. So I got to go once kind of as just a participant where I'm learning about, just these amazing things that other people in the industry, your peers, are doing. And sometimes you get very inspired. You bring back all these learnings back to the team, and then you use that to kind of ideate new things. And so I saw a lot of value in it. But in the past few years, I haven't really been in this type of a IC or an individual contributor role. I'm more just in a kind of an providing direction and guidance and mentoring and coaching. And so while there are probably also tracks and talks that are kind of relevant to that type of work, I've more just used this opportunity to go to San Francisco and meet up with people that are kind of flying in from all over the world that I want to connect with, because I've got friends at this point that I've worked with throughout the years at different companies that have moved around. Some of them live in Europe, some of them live in other regions, and we don't get a chance to meet up often. And a lot of them will make the trip. They'll go to San Francisco. They'll have something, business related or something else that they have that they're going to be doing during that week. And so I just go there because it's a great opportunity to sync up with friends and network. And so that's really the main thing that I do. I do, however, since I'm making the trip there, always get the expo pass, because why not? It's the cheapest thing. But I just I wouldn't have time to invest in going to the actual full conference. So for the past 2 years that I've gone, I haven't actually gone to the real thing, if you will. Yeah. I've gone to the expo a little bit, synced up and networked with new people, and then mostly just had a bunch of meetings throughout the week where I'm, meeting up with people to talk about things that might be helpful for me in my career or might be useful for others that are, trying to get somewhere in their career. So I also try to kind of, help people out, and so there's been a lot of opportunities to do that as well. And yeah, that's my plan.
Yeah, this is my first time going, so and I'm kind of an inside kid, introvert, even though I'm the host of some things. But I'm excited to go. I'm also very nervous, and I'm going to be doing some things with D&D with a friend of mine that is going, and I'm going to be meeting you. I'll be seeing Stefania and some other folks that I know. But I'm going to be trying to follow like the producer track for a while, learn as much as I can, meet a bunch of people, and just kind of take it all in. I'm going to need a nap. I'm going to need a nap just about every day, but that's okay. I'm super excited. So this will actually be coming out while we're at GDC. So if you're listening to this and you're at GDC, come holler at me. I'll be around somewhere. Reach out to me on Blue Sky, and we could maybe chat. But first things first, what are your current obsessions? What are you playing right now?
Yeah. So right now, if I just like think about like what is going on these days, I am still, even though it's been out for a while, always kind of like just when I want to relax and just, turn my brain off a little bit and just enjoy, sitting in the sofa in the living room. I'll fire up Brotato. I've just been hooked on Brotato.
Brotato?
Brotato, yeah.
Wait, I know that. Is that the one where you turn into different action stars?
Well, it's you have these different there's these characters and they're all potatoes. There are these bros that are potatoes, and they have these different abilities and stats. So some of them are things that are pros, and other things are kind of detractors or cons. And so based on what each of them has as these like base stats, you have to use different strategies to beat the game. And so it's this roguelike kind of cyclical thing where you can always like up the levels, make it harder for yourself, or you can change the strategy to try out different things each time. And of course there's so many different classes to choose from. So there's just infinite playability, at least for someone like myself that isn't like that good. So like there's still a challenge, even though I've been playing it for a while. But I'm trying to get through finishing it with all the different classes that are available, and some of them are more tricky than others. But yeah, that's what I've been into. And then kind of similar to that game, the game that I, when I don't want to go sit in my sofa and play the console, and I'm kind of just like taking a break in between, doing something related to work or doing something related to teaching. On my PC, I'll be playing Hades 2. It's just an early access.
Yeah.
I played Hades 1 quite a bit, and I loved that game. And Hades 2 is looking to be even better, and I've just loved it. And so I played as much as they've been able to give to you, but then every time they do an update, I always go back in and check out what they've added. And so that's also a game that I'm playing these days. And then once a week, I'm playing Among Us with a group of friends that are kind of all know each other through the gaming industry or kind of related industries with around gaming. And it's just really fun to have this group that you're always kind of syncing up with, and they're very competitive. And they become so good at it, and everyone knows each other so well.
Yeah.
And so it's super hard. Like you have to like put your A game on in your strategy and your ability to lie and withhold information to be able to survive that game. But I love it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. That's just like the stuff I'm doing in this moment.
That sounds like so much fun, especially talking about Brotato, because even just the name like Brotato, you know so much from the name that it's not serious, that it's like going to be whimsical, and it's going to be some sort of like not casual core type of gaming. And like that's sort of like no thoughts, head empty sort of game. Like when you're playing Brotato, how long will you play before you're just like, you'll do a couple of runs and then leave? Or is it like, okay, I'm sitting down for 2 hours and you have goals?
Well, that's why I think I go to that game so much, is because it has that flexibility. Like I can play it for, half an hour. And that's fine. And I was able to do some fun stuff in it, and then I'm willing to let it go after that. Or I can play it for an hour, or I can play it for 2 hours. So it kind of has that flexibility built into it, because each kind of session round isn't necessarily that long. And then you're willing to do more like runs, even if you've like gone through it once. So it's easy to kind of schedule it around your busy schedule. And so that's why I kind of go to it as just the thing to pass time with and have fun. And it's got a lot of, it's got a great like soundtrack. It's got like fun, quirky looking kind of animations and sound effects. So there's just a lot of things to like about it. They offer even like couch co-op, so you can play with up to 4 people in the same room, and it's kind of impressive how they were able to like force the UI to support being able to like do all the different upgrades and interactions for 4 people at once. Like it's crazy.
Anyone in the industry knows that multiplayer is so hard.
Yeah, and multiplayer, like sitting next to each other, is just like next level complexity, and games that have to support that, and maintain that, especially if they're constantly updating the game, they know the challenges of that being a thing that you always have to kind of keep in mind and make sure you're not breaking in some ways.
Good for Brotato. And I'm so happy to hear that Among Us is still doing its thing, because during the pandemic, Among Us was such a godsend. And so I played Among Us and I played Animal Crossing. And both of those you can, like in Animal Crossing, you can't hear each other. Right. But we had little parties in Animal Crossing. There were like little raves. We were watching people that did full like game shows. There was this guy that did Deal or No Deal. And it was just so wonderful. It's like the world is falling down during the pandemic. I mean, it's kind of doing the same thing now for different reasons. But the world is falling down, but we can still come together and be cute for a little while. And then in Among Us, on slightly different side of the same coin, you get to like murder your friends, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. Oh man, that reminds me. I don't know when it was maybe like a few months ago or something. It came into the news, and this group of mine that plays Among Us together, they were just like, look what they're doing. They're going after Brotato. And the way that it was, yeah, exactly. It was related to that. And the way that they kind of, the headline said this, like there's an assassin simulator game. Yeah. And it's like, well, whenever you phrase it that way, that sounds horrible. But like when you
can
look
tell
at
these are people that have never played a video game before in their entire lives. They have no idea what Among Us is.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and just being like, oh no.
I mean, that's like saying chess is the most, violent game ever made.
You're going to assassinate the queen.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's really funny. But yeah, I haven't actually played Among Us in a while. I do play Vampire Survivors, though, and they have an Among Us pack for Vampire Survivors.
Well, that's right up this alley. So that's, people will quote, like, folks that are more serious about, their gaming, folks that would say that they're like, maybe for them, Brotato is too casual. They would say that, that game is like, that's what they go for. So if that's a game you like, you might actually like Brotato quite a bit.
Since you've played Among Us, and you say you have a bunch of other people that play Among Us a lot, what is your strategy when you're going into it? Because I'm sure there are different strategies for people who play all the time together and you know each other so well. Like when you're a crew member, what is your strategy to not get murdered?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So this group they're so good. And the folks that are imposters are so cunning, and there's so much meta. Like people will they'll kind of overanalyze things. They'll be like, wait, this person that's usually super talkative is being like really quiet, or this guy that like never says anything is like so willing to like ask everybody like, who is it? I don't know who it is. So there's just so many things that can go wrong if you're trying to do something different that's out of the ordinary. So I think the strategy is kind of to try to find, what is your default that people expect from you, and how can you maintain that in both cases. So it's like, don't be too innocent and don't be too sus in neither case.
See, I was always not great at Among Us because I'm really bad at doing one thing and then saying I'm doing another thing, because I'll just be quiet because I'm trying to either sabotage or whatever, or I'm killing someone, and I laugh a lot. So I have like, can I just cut off my microphone and just say like something's wrong, guys? I'm sorry, like my microphone's not working, and then I'm just go around like killing everyone.
Yeah.
But I haven't played Hades 2 yet. I wanted to wait until the full game came out, just because I'm not very good at playing up until a point and then coming back to it.
Yeah.
Because I'll just be like, oh well, I've already played that. So I've specifically wanted to wait on it, but it's hard because I really want to play it and it looks so gorgeous. And I mean, Hades, the first one, I've devoured and still sometimes go back to, because that's the greatness about that game. Like the replayability, I've played it 5 million times. It's like, you know what? Let me do it again. Give me 40 minutes and I'm going to do another run and we'll see what happens. So is there anything about Hades 2 that kind of surprised you, or that you really were like, oh shit, this is great?
Well, I'm just really impressed with how well they were able to kind of understand the things that made the first games good and successful, and kind of lean into the right aspects, and then kind of just like go further into a positive evolution. Like I think that's not something that you can just like expect a developer to always do, because sometimes
I love
it
like, when
let's
studios
switch it up,
I love it when they learn the right lessons.
Yeah.
From the successes.
And I know that they have like this really interesting challenge, because there's, it's like with a lot of different games, like it means different things to different people. Some people are very passionate about like the story needing to like really hook them and make sense. And others are like, wait, there's a story? You mean that thing that I skip between like sessions? And people are just like, oh, clutch my pearls. What? You skip it?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not just the same game for everyone. And so you have to kind of cater to that, like different scenarios. Like you have to make it really meaningful and well done for the story aspect, but then you also have to make sure that for folks that just enjoy the combat, that's also something that they're investing in. And I feel like they've really found the balance, and I'm enjoying kind of all aspects of it. I like a narrative-based game, but I also like a game that really has this interesting kind of progression mechanic, and you can kind of see the replayability remain fun even after you've unlocked a lot of things, because you're always kind of challenging yourself in new ways and learning new strategies and methods of playing the game. So yeah, I like it.
I have music in my head all the time. And sometimes I will find myself just going back to that music that's in the main part of the game of Hades, and then I'm like, when was the last time I actually heard that? And it's been forever, but it'll just like pop into my head because it was so good. So you're making me want to play the second one. I might have to actually like break it out before the full game is out.
It's safe to do, because the way that they're rolling out the early access is they're not putting it out in like really rocky state and then it'll drastically change when they release the full thing. It's more certain pieces that you can play through in the first few hours are going to be the solid ones that they've already kind of polished, and then it's really just the added kind of end game stuff that takes longer to kind of fully flesh out, that they're still working on. So it won't be a compromised experience if you decide to give it a try.
Cool. Well, right now, there's a couple of things that I've been obsessed with. This week, the latest pack for Power Wash Simulator came out, which is my favorite game in the entire world. That's my like no thoughts head empty game. Right. So a Wallace and Gromit pack has come out, and there's 5 new levels where you're cleaning all the stuff around the Wallace and Gromit sort of universe. And I played through it yesterday. I was like, I'm just going to play one, and then I actually need to write stuff for the podcast that I'm doing tomorrow. And I played through all of them. And I was honestly thankful that it was only 5 because I couldn't stop. It was so delightful and wonderful. And I've kind of had a cold this week, and it's been great to just like sit with my Switch and play Power Wash Simulator while listening to another podcast or like I usually have some sort of Let's Play happening. But it's so cute. And if you like any of the Aardman, Wallace and Gromit world, and there's so many like little touches. And I've always said Future Labs was so smart for opening up Power Wash Simulator to other IPs. I was just like, this is genius, because I will buy every pack. And the game itself, I think the game itself, if you're just buying vanilla Power Wash Simulator, it's like $25. And there's a whole, like there's hours and hours and hours. There's a whole game, and I love it. And then every downloadable pack is like $8, but they come out with a new downloadable pack every 6 months or so, and they give you some free ones every season. They'll give you like one free one, and it's just brilliant. So good on you, Future Labs, because I will give you all of my money, and it's so much fun. So if anybody just wants to like chill out and relax and wash some shit, Power Wash Simulator is the best. I hate washing stuff in real life, but I will sit there for 5 hours and just play Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah, it's so fascinating for, designers to think about this, because I remember like years ago, we would have these discussions back and forth around like, needing to ensure as like a principle that we really wanted to focus on, that nothing would ever feel like a mundane chore to players.
Yeah, I've had these conversations.
In the game that you're making, and it's like, oh, that's like, it's this like cardinal sin. You don't want to do that. You don't want it to feel repetitious or anything. And then here we are talking about these like super repetitious games and these like chore simulator games. So,
and it's so satisfying, and it's just, again, no thoughts, head empty game. My job for the next 3 hours is I'm cleaning this house, and every single bit of it is covered in muck, and you get to see every single bit of it get shiny, and there's this little ding every time a different part, and it's just so satisfying, and it's just put it directly into my veins. It's wonderful. Yes. But I have finished that now, but I will probably go back. And the environmental storytelling is fabulous, because no one ever talks to you. You're always all the communication is through text messages, and it's just great. It's wonderful, and there's so many like just little jokes, and it's so stupid. I love stupid, whimsical games, and it's so stupid and wonderful. So there's that. Another thing I've been obsessed with is 2 Point Museum, which came out a week and a half ago now, I believe. Maybe last week. It's so much fun, and it's another one of those. It's a museum builder simulator game. And 2 Point, they did 2 Point Hospital, which I haven't played, which I now want to go back and play, because it's one of those games where you have this museum, and you have to hire people, and you have to manage your money and everything. But one of the things it has done that so many of these other games have not done, it gives you enough money to really get started and not have to worry about, oh God, I have no more money to get this exhibit or to do these decorations.
Right.
So it's you hit the ground running, and it's really whimsical. And there's this woman, there's a woman who is the museum speaker, and she says things like, please don't ask me where the bathrooms are. I just work here, and things like that. And there's just so many little things. And there's like 2 Point Museum radio, where this like guy comes on and is kind of snarky and funny. And every time you send someone off on an exhibition to find you more exhibits, it's like, say goodbye to the expedition. They may never come back. So it's really funny. And one of the things that I love about it so much is that you can put things diagonally. There are so many of these like simulators where you're building things where you can't put things diagonally,
right,
and things look so good together. And it's not in a grid where you can only put it here or here or here. You can put it in the middle. You can put it. I don't know how they did it, because it's so hard to get things that will look good together and not collide in weird ways. It has its little quirks, of course, but it's so fun, and it's so good. And there's all these little surprises. So I did my museum, and then you open up and you do another museum, but the second museum is haunted. And I'm just like, oh hell yeah! Like this is my bread and butter. I have a goth museum, and your exhibits there are ghosts. And I had no idea that was a thing that happened when I started the game. I
Oh
thought I was
wow.
just going to have a museum. So 2 Point Museum is delightful. It is so much fun. And I've
Yeah.
been playing that until I was like, oh yeah, the new Power Wash Simulator pack is out. So that's all I did yesterday. And and another game that I've bought but haven't started yet. I've waited because I know that it's going to take up all of my time because my best friend is all he's doing right now is the Monster Hunter Wilds.
Oh
Have
yeah.
you
Hmm.
have you played any of it yet?
I have not. When Monster Hunter came out, though, is when I was at Bungie, and we were talking about it a lot because there were things in it that were kind of referencing and discussing in relation to Destiny, and then especially the folks within my team, which were focused on UI UX, we were like baffled about some of the UX kind of complexities in it. And man, it's just interesting to see that players are because they're enjoying this game, like it doesn't always mean that a game is not going to be successful, even if it's complex to do things and achieve certain objectives in the game. And so there was a lot of discussion about it, but I didn't get into it. I think at the time I was just like at capacity with these like games that you start up and then it's going to be like a pretty long ride. It's like a live service
Yeah.
game that
Yeah.
never ends. There's a infinite progression curve that you are just on a hamster wheel now, part of. And so I didn't get into it, but I've discussed it a lot.
Yeah, my best friend, who is also the audio engineer for this podcast, I kind of roast him at the end of every episode. So he is playing, and so he's going through the main storyline. And everyone, I've heard this from a lot of people, that the real game starts when the story is done.
Yeah.
Because that's when that's when it's actually open world. So right now he just calls it Monster Listener instead of Monster Hunter, because he is one of these people that wants to just get rid of all the story and he just wants to bonk the monsters. And I do like a story, but I was over at his place the other day and I was like, I haven't started Monster Hunter yet. Can I watch you play a bit and make sure it's something that I want to play? And it looks really cool. And I think we were playing for like 90 minutes and he had 2 hunts in those 90 minutes. And there were a couple of times that he was just like, I'm just going to set the controller down. And he said he just looked so annoyed. And I'm like, yeah, but it's story, it's plot happening. And he was like, I don't care. I just want to bonk monsters.
Right.
And so like you were saying, those different kinds of players.
Yeah.
It's really weird because my partner, he is all about the narrative. And then I have my best friend that just like wants to fire all narrative designers into the sun. And it's like, how do you play the same games? I guess you just play Diablo. Like,
Right.
I guess that's it.
But
yeah.
it is so challenging, like, when I was working at Bungie, we were working on Destiny. The whole history of the company was, in many ways based off of the success of Halo, which was this game that a lot of people would, contribute to being successful because it had this really rich story that people really connected with. But of course, you also could look at it as a game that was successful because of its multiplayer aspects. And so, but it's hard to piece it apart. You can't necessarily know that it would have been a successful game if it was just a multiplayer game with no story, or vice versa. So there was always this like kind of balance that needed to be hit in terms of managing expectations from fans of just the company. When Destiny was coming out, how do we ensure that there's going to be this thing that they're expecting, but also we're trying to evolve kind of what a game is, into more of a live service. And the aspects of the game that are live service weren't really rooted in this like deep storytelling. That was more, the story is what you make of it. You and your buddies getting together and raiding for 5 hours. That's the story. And so how do you bring those two very different needs of different players together into the same product and figure out how are you going to introduce someone into this? Are you going to ask them at the beginning, do you like story or not? Or are you just going to introduce a little bit of both and then see which path they go down? I think a lot of franchises are trying to figure out where that balance lies.
Yeah, it's really weird. But one thing that I have noticed about even the people that are complaining about Monster Hunter, they're still playing it and loving it. Like my friend has put in I don't know, like probably 25 or 30 hours into it already. And so I think I don't know how far he is in the story yet because I haven't played it yet, but he was like, I just cannot wait to get through this story and then just play forever and ever. And so it's like, I think the expectation is there's going to be a story. So it's like, let me get through this and then do what I really love. And then there's other folks that are like, oh, I want more story. I wish the story wasn't only 50 hours long or something like that. But I thought the story was really cool. I can't wait to play it, but I know that I'm going to just fall into it. So I'm like, let me get through 2 Point Museum and do all of that I wanted to do. I got through my Power Wash Simulator. Let me make sure that there's nothing else that I really need to do before jumping into Monster Hunter. Also, my partner's playing Avowed right now, and we share the Xbox. So it's like, you play that, I'll play the 2 Point Museum on my Steam Deck, and we don't fight over it right now, but it's going to be good. This weekend is going to be Monster Hunter Wilds weekend, I think.
All right. That's a good plan.
Well, that is a great place to stop for a quick ad break. Today's sponsor is Banshee, the newest video game from CLB Games. The gates of the otherworld stand open, and the Grey Malkin bids you welcome. A mysterious voice beckons you further into the wilds of this place. Explore the paths your ancestors blazed, hearing their lived truth as you walk the garden. Honor the acts of quiet bravery, of uncompromised dignity, and of rebellion in the face of tyranny. So learn your legacy in Banshee. And now this is a game about Irish history. So Banshee is actually spelled Beansidhe in the actual Irish. So it's very cool. So if you're looking for it, look for that. It's launching March 17th, which I believe at the time this podcast is out, it will have come out yesterday. So Banshee is available as a pay what you want on the itch.io, and all proceeds are being donated to a rotating series of trans mutual aid and Palestinian families in need. So if you are interested in this game, it's really cool. It's really beautiful. I know some of the folks that are making this game, and they have poured heart and soul and their Irish history into it. So please visit CLB Games, that's SEALBEE games.com. And for all the download info, that is BEANSIDHE. And links will also be in the show notes for this episode. Thanks so much to CLB Games and Banshee for sponsoring this episode. And we are back. So Orvar, you've been in the industry a minute. So I would love to talk about how you got into the industry and how you got into teaching, because I would love to talk about your teaching and mentoring, because I know that's very important to you. So give it to me. How did you fall in love with games?
Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with games when I was, I think I was 8 years old when I got my first gaming console. It was called the Sinclair Spectrum back in those days. And you had to load the game on a cassette, listening to these like really loud kind of scrambled noises and looking at scrambled graphics on the screen of the TV until it had finished loading, which took sometimes 15 minutes or something, and then you would be in this game that was very visually simple, but at the time, in my memory, you were in this amazing world, and in these like dungeons and fighting bad guys and all that stuff, and so I got into gaming really young. I got my first PC and got it connected to the internet when very few people in Iceland even knew what the internet was. And so I was introduced to Ultima Online and some of these things that are kind of early games. And I was just really into games, and I played almost everything that came out. I was a big PC gamer initially, played a lot on PC more than on other devices. And I just kind of loved it. But I initially didn't necessarily tread directly into the gaming industry. I always felt like I was wanted to do something creative, and so I did design, more just kind of traditional design, like graphic design and things like that. And then I decided to go to Full Sail University, which is a school in Florida.
Yeah. Full
Right.
Sail's great.
Yeah, Full Sail is crazy how much it's grown. Like it was
Yeah.
3 buildings when I went there, and today it's like 14 buildings. So it's just and each building is just like a full campus-sized building. So it's just crazy how much it's grown. So the tracks and the different courses that you could take when I went there, they've just expanded those quite a bit, and they're able to invest a lot of really expensive equipment to the school. Like they'll be the only school that owns a Panavision. Like they actually have a Panavision camera for the film track. They have like a full audio engineering setup that is just like the same that you would encounter if you were working on making Kendrick Lamar's album or something. But the reason they're able to do this and invest in such expensive equipment is because their strategy is to basically have classes at every hour. Like we would sometimes be coming at 10 in the evening when another class was leaving the lab, and we would be coming in, and our lab was until 2 a.m. Or 2 in the middle of the night for folks that aren't AM PM verse. And then you would have a class that was coming in then that were taking over from us. So they just had classes all the time, any day of the week.
Wow.
All days of the year.
How big were the ones overnight?
I mean, it was like it was just whatever you were given. So your class just got their schedule for the week, and it was whatever, where you landed in the alphabet or where your class
I did not know that.
was assigned.
I mean, good for them to figure out how to make it work, especially giving you the top of the line stuff. But like, how did you feel? Did you also have classes at like 8 a.m. if you had a 2 a.m. class? And then another class at 8?
Yeah, no, they made sure to not have things overlap in a bad way. Like you would always get like a certain amount of hours in between, so you could go get rest, and then they would rotate it. So like you weren't often getting the short straw.
Gotcha.
You would
get that makes sense.
You would get it maybe once every 2-3 months or something, and then other classes would need to do it next and stuff like that.
But college kids, you work overnights and you do overnights, but that's that's kind of ridiculous if it's like, okay, I have a 3 o'clock class and then 3 a.m. class, and then I have an 8 a.m. class, and then I have a 12 noon class. And it's just like, I would be a robot.
Yeah, and this was, a lot of things have changed in the industry since this was, but at the time, the teachers would kind of use this as a, well, how things are going to get kind of crazy when you enter the workforce. When you go into the industry,
yeah,
you're going to have projects that need to sometimes ship, and you need to, stay until something is done or whatever. And so this is kind of just like prepping you for it. And I don't think that would fly as a message today necessarily. I think it's just a different time, but at the time that was like a big part of it. And so we got to use a lot of like the latest and the greatest equipment and everything, and I really felt like I learned a lot to kind of be ready for just anything in this industry of working in any type of digital media. And the kinds of tools that I learned to use were not just geared towards gaming. At the time, the track that I took was just a more generalized digital media track. So I was actually, before I joined gaming, working in post-production, movies and TV production, and working on motion graphics and visual effects and editing and stuff like that. So, and that's all stuff that I learned at Full Sail as well. So a lot of things that I was able to kind of kick off different careers from. But as I came back to Iceland after having graduated in 2001, I kind of like got to hear from a lot of folks that they had been interested in this school, but didn't necessarily have the means to move to the US to learn it. So they were in this school that was local to Iceland called the Multimedia School of Iceland. And they asked me to teach what I had learned there. So I kind of started my teaching journey back then, just when I was recently graduated.
Yeah, it's kind of spread the wealth sort of thing.
Right. So I got a chance to learn a little bit about what it is to teach, but at the time it was much more just, I didn't have a lot of experience working in the field, but I had this good experience that I had accumulated from the school, so I was able to kind of teach it through that lens. Whereas I think now when I'm teaching, it's more, I can also kind of base it off of sharing some of the experience itself rather than just the craft knowledge that I learned somewhere.
Cool. So did you go into CCP games while going back to Iceland?
Yeah, I did, but it was a few years after I first came back. So really interesting thing was happening around the time that I was graduating from school. The dot-com crash was kind of happening at the time.
Was this 2008?
Well, no, that was the
that?
financial banking crash. Right. This was like back in...
How many crises do we have? I get them mixed
one
up.
every 8 to 10 years, I think. At least in my lifetime. That's kind of it checks out.
Yeah, now I'm sad.
But yeah, it was the dot-com crash around 2000, 2001. And so a lot of companies that had been investing heavily in, technology and multimedia, which was a word that people used back then, or digital media or new media, all these different terms were things that a lot of companies were like, oh yes, we have to have a website. We have to have some kind of a digital presence. And, now everything is happening digitally. And it kind of went, it's kind of like AI these days. It's like they went really hard into it and then kind of realized that some of it wasn't really that much of a substance. And so the whole thing kind of crashed, and it crashed beyond what it should have crashed. Like there was a lot of stuff that unnecessarily, crashed. And so some companies were just kind of like defunding it completely, just going like, oh, this is not working. This was a bubble. Let's just go back to brick and mortar. And
so it was gun shy.
Yeah, so it was hard to get a job in this specific field when I got back to Iceland. So what I did was I formed a company with a friend of mine, just offering services, because one of the things that companies were willing to do at this time was they kind of like got rid of these like departments of full-time employees that they had invested in to do these type of things internally, but they still identified that they kind of needed something still. They needed someone to build their website and things like that.
You want to outsource it?
Yeah,
I can outsource for you.
Right. So we kind of just like used our skill set to do that for a few years. And so as I had kind of accumulated a lot of skills in building websites and apps and these like multimedia DVD experiences, I was able to land a job kind of in post-production and movie production. One of the big things that they did there was create DVD menus. So back in the olden days when you owned a DVD movie and you would pop it in, it would have a menu that would show up. And sometimes someone had done a very basic job of just creating, like static buttons, and you click on them to start playing the movie. And other times you would have this like amazing creativity being put into the interactions and animations and transitions of those menus. And so that was the kind of stuff that I was doing.
Is this where you fell in love with UX UI, or were you already kind of into that?
I think it was at this time that I started realizing that I wanted to venture more into this kind of interaction design, thinking through user experience. But at the time, I didn't even know that it was called that. No one was calling it user experience yet. But I was doing things that were very much in that nature. People were seeking us out as a production company to just be able to solve all kinds of challenges. So they were like, hey, this bank is having this huge event, and we want to basically just recreate the scene like you're in Paris, and we want to have these like, big projectors that are projection mapping it and making you think that you're in Paris with the Eiffel Tower. And so we would just make those experiences. We would go into the venue, we would visualize it in 3D, how it was going to look, and then we would produce these videos that would be run, and there would be a lighting technician that would set it all up so that it would look real cool, and kind of the mood will be set, and so that's it's kind of like people are doing it when they're doing user experiences and trying to envision an experience for someone and then create it. And so I definitely started to kind of get the idea that this was something that I like to do. And then especially when I started doing these kind of exhibition and museum displays and interactive digital experiences where you're not just creating like a very straightforward kiosk for people to just click on buttons to learn about something, but you were sometimes asked to figure out a very creative way to do it. Like, hey, how would you create a very interactive and exciting navigation to scroll through different types of whales and then stop on one of them, and as you kind of start to interact with a whale, you start to hear the sounds that it makes and things like that. And so there was a lot of projects that I was able to be part of in that during that time that just helped me really realize that this was something that I wanted to get into more. And then this kind of opportunity came along, which was to join CCP Games. So at the time, Stefania, who we both know, had opened up a role for someone to help them with UI and UX in EVE Online, which was their game that had been, around for many years, and it had been successful, but it kind of had this notorious saying about it, which is that it was successful despite its UI, not because of it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like playing Excel in space. So they were like, we have so much opportunity to fix this. We need a person to help us fix it. And so, of course, there were people already on a team working on it, but they had ambitions and needed more people to join. So they opened up this role. They had a hard time finding someone that already had like direct experience in this field within gaming that was willing to move to Iceland. So they kind of started to look for someone local. And there weren't really that many at all game companies except CCP at the time. So it was like there wasn't a pool of options. So they looked at folks that maybe had adjacent skill set. They had the fundamental understanding of the things that the role required, but maybe not direct past experience in the exact same thing.
I mean, it makes sense because you're already crafting experiences.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly
what UX is. UX and UI, you're crafting that experience, and it's so important because if I have a UX in a game that I don't understand or is annoying, and you have to deal with UX every time you want to do something. Like, I can't play the game if it pisses me off too bad. So yeah, that makes sense. There's just like, craft this user experience, please. User retention is important.
Yeah. So I was able to kind of land that opportunity. I think also it helped when I was interviewing there. Folks were able to kind of identify that, okay, here's someone that has the foundational knowledge that we're looking for. We can add to the thing that are gaps in terms of like, here's how you actually ship and produce and develop a game. But then also just having that kind of background and just being a gamer and loving games and just having
it definitely helps.
been into so that was awesome. That kind of really set me on course to enter that industry. But it's also really funny, like, even though I've been in gaming ever since, like, this was a great opportunity. I got it in 2010 and I haven't looked back. I've been in the gaming industry ever since. I think it's amazing that Stefania took a chance on me. But it's so funny, like, I also kind of like look very fondly upon the time before that when I was in post-production. Got a chance to work at, the leading production companies in Iceland at the time. Some of these companies were doing a lot of big production because Iceland was just a really popular destination for a lot of big movies. And sometimes they would need location and events and post-production services from local companies. And then I also worked at Framestore for a little bit, where I got a chance to work on some of these big budget movies. And it's such a funny thing because sometimes you don't know when it's happening that you're going to be part of something that then becomes this like thing that people will remember. But it was just so funny because I worked on a movie called Clash of Titans, which wasn't necessarily a successful movie. It was kind of a shit show because of the fact that they had to kind of change the whole production of the movie during the creation of it. They had shot a bunch of things with the actors, like these were big names like Liam Neeson, in a set that they weren't happy with when they were looking at it in the post-production. So what they decided to do, because they hadn't actually shot it with like a proper setup like you do with these like big Marvel movies where it's just everything is in green screen, they just had it in some set, but the set was underwhelming. So they hired Framestore, and a bunch of other post-production houses to do what is called rotoscoping. So you're frame by frame cutting out the person so that you can have them
sounds expensive.
Be composited into a brand new environment that's a whole different one.
Yeah.
And then Liam Neeson in this whole scene that he's in has this like big curly long hair with his huge beard, and he's like mad and moving quite a bit. So you're not just rotoscoping these like simple shapes, you're having to rotoscope like individual pockets of curly hair and curly beard. So it was like weeks and months of working on this stuff. And sometimes, which is just the way that this stuff kind of works, is you had been working on doing that for a specific scene where he's saying a certain sentence that then in the cutting room they decided wasn't needed. So you'd be like, oh, okay, so that scene that you've been working on, those like 400 frames that you've been hand rotoscoping, cutting, aren't needed anymore.
Question: if you're working on something for months, like one scene or just a couple of scenes, by the time the movie actually comes out, do you even want to see the movie, or are you just so sick of it that you're just like, if I have to see another beard hair on that man's face, I will go crazy. That's what's funny though, is the only thing I remember from Clash of Titans, which I think was the big meme, the release the Kraken. Yeah. That was from that movie, right?
That was my scene. That was the one that I was rotoscoping. That's what's
became like, that's what everybody took from that movie.
Yeah,
it just became, that's so hilarious.
Funny. Yeah, so it wasn't too bad that some of those other parts of that specific scene didn't make it, because the one that you see in that GIF, in that meme, is the specific scene, and it's so outrageously funny because like we were just like, we had to crank the visual effects up like ridiculously to kind of mask the fact that this was being rotoscoped into this new environment and all that stuff. So you have his like whole armor just like doing this like way over the top shimmering and
it's a beautiful shine. Like Saint Seiya sort of armor.
Yeah, and so it's that scene. It's that scene that I've had been looking at for all this time, and then you just have that be this like part of history. And then I was working with this buddy of mine at Bungie, and he was just like, oh yeah, the release the Kraken, that one's funny. I was like, oh yeah, that. And then I told him the story, and he was just like, what?
So not only did you have to work on that one scene for something like a couple of months, the movie came out, and then the meme had to follow you forever and ever. So now you just get to see him releasing the Kraken over. So you released the Kraken, basically. Yeah,
I had a small hand in it. It's it takes a village, especially in things like this. Even if you don't think that something is visually, aesthetically impressive, and the way that the production got to this point of having the scene look this way is not the greatest.
I don't remember.
It still needs a lot of people.
I don't remember anything else about that movie, honestly. I just remember him standing in front of some sort of like throne type of thing with his foot up on the step, and he kind of looks back and then just released the Kraken. That's the only thing I remember about that movie. So great job.
Yeah, exactly. It's and because you were asking earlier, like, can you even watch the movie? I mean, it's fun to watch something like that and know that you had a small hand in it. It's surreal. It's surreal to look at something like that and be like, yeah, I was part of that. Like everyone in this movie theater is just watching this like any other movie. But I was like, and then of course you start noticing the little kind of like things in the corner that you maybe missed or something. And then you're like, oh no, how did we miss that? But yeah, most people that I know that are in post-production and do that type of job still today, they just kind of have to accept the fact that it's a lot of work to be able to kind of immerse yourself into a movie when you kind of make movies, because you're just like, you're the whole time you're just like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how they did that Foley, or oh, I wonder if they did that with displays in the background, or if they actually just used green screen, or like you're just, everything is you just trying to kind of like reverse engineer the scenes instead of like actually just following the movie and believing that this is all happening on a spaceship or whatever the movie is.
I'm a logistics person, so I'm always wondering about things like that. Before getting into gaming, I worked for a production house in Brooklyn here in Williamsburg. It was a little boutique of all-encompassing production house that did music videos and commercials and a bunch of print media and things like that. Very quirky things, though. And it was so fun because they were commercials, they were small spots, because they were music videos. It was one of those things where you will do this entire thing in like 4 days.
Yeah.
Not only like, it's one of those things where you set everything up, and then as soon as the papers are signed that, yeah, we're doing this, and you get the check, it's just like, then all of the dominoes need to fall, because you need to make this music video in 3 days. And it was interesting because I got to see from beginning to end a microcosm of probably what they do for a film, just elongated. And it was so fun. It was such a weird little job. I was their studio manager, so I did a little bit of everything. And I always tell people, like, one of my favorite things is we always had to set everything up that the production needed ahead of time. And so we were calling places. There was a commercial that we were going to do that it needed a raccoon. It ended up being cut, that they didn't actually need the raccoon. So I remember calling places in New York City, because there are a lot of animal handlers, and just trying to find a raccoon that was free for Thursday. And how much they cost.
Right.
It's at least at this time, it was $400 for like 4 hours or something like that for this raccoon and their handler. So it's always one of my trivia is like, I know how much it costs to rent a raccoon in New York City. But it's just, every day was something like that. And it was so much fun and weirdness, and you can never be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know I was going to come in that day and calling people and like trying to rent refrigerators and raccoons and a truck that had I remember we needed a truck that was strong enough for a dancer to dance on the hood, and it needed to be a truck from the 80s. So it was like, no one with a vintage truck wants a dancer on their hood. And we were trying to figure out how, because the dancer needed to be wearing shoes, but the guy was like, you're not putting shoes on my truck. And so we had to make these like ballet shoes that kind of looked like the shoes she was wearing when she was running down. It was just a whole thing. It's a lot of fun, and it's a weird world of production and post-production. And
yeah,
it takes a weird person. And it's great.
This was kind of like, life every day at this production company that I worked at in Iceland, because they did this like location services for, foreign, movie companies, but also just like local. They did TV production of all kinds, where they often had to be very scrappy with like a low budget, but they needed to do something ambitious. And then they were also
scrappiness will come
coordinator,
come up with lots of
an
things.
event kind of organizing company that would do things all the way to like really big scale, like, oh, the richest man in China is coming and wants to, fly around in a helicopter for 2 weeks with their new girlfriend and see the whole country. And you have to coordinate that for them. And then the next week you're doing something huge for one of the biggest, companies in the country, and they want to do something amazing for their workers. And so every day was just this like crazy, like you had to have people that were good at just knowing how to find the craziest things. And sometimes it was like, if you had some celebrities coming and then they had like special, sometimes outrageous needs, then that would just, someone would have to be the person that would know how to acquire those things.
Yeah, you become scrappy is a great word for it, because we were I won't say small budget, because the money was there, but you needed to be economical as much as possible, because you can't waste anything.
Right.
Because especially the record companies that were paying for these videos, you say you need this much. The director says they need this much for the vision. And then they're like, okay, you get maybe half of that, but we still want the vision, but you get half of, I mean, it's the same thing with video games. It's like here we need 18 million features. You're not getting all that money. So make it work, basically. That's all life is. Just make it work.
Yeah.
No matter where you are.
Yeah. There's a phrase in Iceland which people use a lot. It's "þetta reddast," which just means it'll be fine. It'll be all right. And people just live by that phrase so much there. They're just like, like people are just like drowning, and it's like, it's not looking like you're going to make this. Like everyone's just like, you're not going to make it. Like we're a week from shipping, it's not going to happen. And then someone will just be like, and then everyone's like, yeah, let's just do this.
Yeah.
And I think it's this like fake it till you make it, or like, just let's believe, let's secret that this will happen. That actually makes it get there, get across the finish line.
One of my mottos is like, we'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. We'll figure it out. Nothing is like, everything is imminently solvable in some way. But we'll figure it out. But I really like that though. It's like, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
It'll be okay somehow. But so you do UX and UI, and right now you're at Mojang and you're one of the creative leads for Minecraft.
Yeah.
So what does your job entail at Mojang doing UX UI?
Yeah, great question. So the way that Mojang is kind of structured, we have studios both in Redmond, which is kind of like where a lot of the Microsoft buildings are located here within the Seattle area. And that's where I'm based. And then we also have a studio in Stockholm, in Sweden, because the company was originally from Sweden, founded by Swedes. And so when Microsoft acquired the company, they kind of maintained this, presence in Sweden, and that's like the origin of the game, and it's the kind of like it's at the heart of a lot of the culture of the company and the game. So I lead the design team, working within an organization called Minecraft Gaming Experiences, but it's a little bit misleading to say that, because that doesn't necessarily explain my team's role, because we don't necessarily focus on gameplay experiences within the gaming experience itself. That's mostly a team that is based in Stockholm that is focusing on making the types of expansions and add-ons to the gameplay of Minecraft itself that we, Mojang, release. Now, the other part of kind of what Minecraft is today is that it's a lot about what the creator community makes it. So we work with these third-party creators. Some of them are just like, they feel like, small-scale studios on their own. They're not just like individuals making some user-generated content. They're doing things at a pretty amazing professional production level. And so they do a lot of the actual kind of gameplay stuff as well. My team focuses on a lot of the things that are kind of around making the whole ecosystem of the game function the best it can. So like designing the UX of the marketplace experience, the Realms subscription service, all of these things that kind of sit around the game, but are also a big part of just the overall game as an IP.
Cool. So you're still crafting experiences.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, very much. And a lot of them will tie into other things. So if we're, for example, investing a lot in enabling players to be able to do more things in a multiplayer way or in more of a social way to kind of engage with each other, my team will be involved in that as well, but more from a kind of empowerment standpoint, like enabling those tools and those experiences, but not necessarily crafting the exact gameplay that comes out of it within the game world.
It's interesting because it just kind of reminds me, a game like Minecraft, which is huge, one of the biggest games in the world, not only in popularity, but also just in gameplay, like infinite gameplay.
Yeah.
There are so many things that go into that, because for folks that don't work in the industry, they think here's a box with all of the game devs that make this game, and then people do a lot of the same jobs, and that's kind of true for smaller properties and smaller IPs. There might be someone who is a techno producer and also like takes care of the art department and things like that. But when you get so big, you need full departments that are working on every little part of the game. And it's wild to me. And I love seeing how the departments all work together. And I'm a producer at heart. So I'm just like, I want to be that person that gives the people the opportunity to do their jobs and to do these things efficiently. And I don't know, it's just really cool, because especially something like Microsoft and Mojang, and it's just, it's wild to me how many different people make these things happen.
Yeah.
And people like to say, like, whoever made this decision is stupid. Like, you know, people that aren't in the industry but like to get mad about games. And it's like, well, about 1,500 people went into making that decision. So yeah, it's very cool. So you also teach.
Yeah.
And that's still something that you're doing, which is very cool.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that for a few years now. I think at the time when I decided to join Xbox after I parted ways with Bungie, which was around 2019, is when I started to also teach at DigiPen, which is a school, a college local here in the area that has been fairly successful throughout the years of preparing folks for just entering the gaming industry as pretty well established professionals. Like when I worked at Bungie, I worked with a lot of different folks from different disciplines that had gone to DigiPen. So I knew it had that kind of credibility and value. So I was really interested and intrigued when I was kind of asked to help out with the course of Intro to UX Design, as well as the advanced course, which a former member of my team at Bungie, Jamie Lukens, was teaching at the time, but it was growing so much within the school that she kind of needed an additional teacher to kind of help teach some of the additional courses, because there were like multiple tracks every semester. And then recently she kind of decided to focus solely on her career. You know, she's a busy design lead at Riot. And so she has also just been doing this for a very long time. So she kind of took a break. So now I'm teaching a lot of courses each semester, helping kind of students that want to join the gaming industry. Not all of them necessarily want to become UX designers, but one of the things that a lot of them recognize is that it's really valuable to take a course in fundamentals of UX to be able to work effectively with people that focus on that craft. If you're in any role within game development. So some of these students are wanting to be level designers or narrative designers or game designers, but they still take this course. Now, there are sometimes folks that are like, I'm taking this course because this is what I want to do, and that's awesome too. But I really enjoy also just knowing that a lot of these folks are going to get kind of a good foundational understanding of the value of the perspectives that are kind of being covered, and hoping that that'll ensure that there's going to be really good, meaningful collaboration between folks in future generations of game developers.
Yeah. Being a teacher, but also being in the industry right now, you're in a really interesting position to be real with the students as well about how the industry is changing, especially in the last couple of years. Like I myself was part of like layoffs in the game industry, and I'm still looking for new jobs in New York. Hey, hire me. But I mean, what do you see in new students, and how do you prepare them for the industry the way it is now compared to like the way it was when you entered 15 plus years ago?
Yeah, exactly. It is stressful for these students. The ones that are kind of coming close to graduating are especially worried because they just feel the pressure of like needing to get out there and start kind of getting opportunities to be able to join a company. Sometimes that journey doesn't necessarily just mean that they're like gonna make a bunch of money right away. Sometimes you have to kind of start off as an intern, even though you've gotten an education. It's just kind of
Yeah.
how things are, because companies are sometimes less willing to take the risk of someone, even though they've learned certain basics. They still need a lot of handholding, and if someone is there to onboard you and help you kind of get up to speed on doing certain things in the proprietary tools that you might be using or whatever, that's going to be a little bit of a ding to their productivity as well. And so when companies are in kind of the turmoil that they've been in right now, they don't necessarily always have the resources internally to kind of maintain a good, early in career or new to the industry kind of onboarding, or even just internship programs. So I think that
Yeah.
people are worried, about that, and the kind of like less opportunities. But I think there are still opportunities, like because the school, this is what they do. They're officially, helping people, acquire the skills needed to be effective in the industry, and then they also have a lot of support for them to help place them into opportunities. And so they hear about a lot of things. As GDC is coming up, there's going to be all these booths where there's different organizations wanting to interview people. So I wouldn't say that it's just like frozen. There are opportunities out there, but it is different, and
Yeah.
and it has shifted a lot. One of the things that's interesting also is just that some students are, they're kind of like I wish I had this kind of desire in me, but I've gotten to a point where I kind of just want to be a little bit safe in my career choices. But a lot of students are just very emboldened. They're just like, well, I want to start my own thing. I
Yeah.
don't need to worry about the state of the market when I go out to it, because I believe that what I want to go make isn't already there. And so there'll be a way for me to carve that out and just create a new type of, game, you know, game environment, genre of games, and game developer that does things in this way that I've envisioned. And I like that ambition. I don't want to kind of like necessarily give them like a real talk of like, that's not going to be as easy of a road as you think. And most people that actually go that route, they only trust themselves to do it once they've actually accumulated years of experience in the industry, kind of learning how to do things at that like professional production level.
Yeah.
And they might even fail, even if they've accumulated that experience. So someone that goes and does it without that context might be having even harder time going through it. But I mean, I also look back on my own experience, and that's exactly what I did. I graduated from a school that had an industry that was in turmoil at the time, and I just started my own company because I saw that, okay, well, if they're not willing right now to hire folks full time, but they still need this thing that I know how to do, can I just do something else for a while? And I did that for a few years, and then the industry recovered, and things went back to normal, so to speak. So I think that there are opportunities in situations like this, and it's not forever. I want to believe that it's a phase, and the evolution hopefully will generate something that actually ends up being better in the end.
Yeah, a lot of the students, because I used to talk a lot with the folks from NYU Gaming Center, and they're talking about the passion. It's great, and a lot of times, like, they don't know what they don't know,
Right.
so they don't know that they need to be wary of these things, and so they just barrel head first. And sometimes they're really successful doing that, and good for them. And I mean, it's kind of like an ignorance is bliss almost.
Yeah.
That I'm just going to do this thing, and this is what I was made to do, and I'm just like, you do it.
and, and it
Good for you.
is, sometimes it actually works. Like,
Yeah, sometimes it
like
does.
we're talking about like these games like Potato, and I'm saying that I love it and I'm just playing it all the time, and it's made primarily by one person. They did get help from other folks, but they're kind of just like getting that help through licensing of such stuff. They
Yeah.
they reach out to this person, and it's like a transaction of like, hey, make me a few original tracks of music and I'll pay you a certain amount for it, and that's it. Mostly the kind of the bulk of the development was just this one person. And so when students are saying that they kind of just like want to go their own path and they don't want to go into this like bloated organization, there's a lot of freedom and opportunity that might be in that. Like they can act really quickly. They won't necessarily get themselves ready for that bulkier environment. They'll
Yeah.
they'll kind of like they'll learn certain things really well, but the whole like working on a team, and it's less about the idea being good and how well you're able to influence and pitch it, and get people kind of aligned and onboarded to doing a thing. That becomes a harder skill to focus on than necessarily being very creative. But I mean, if they want to start with that, and maybe they find success in that, I'm not going to say that they can't do it just because that's not something that I'm willing to do today. I think that
Right.
there are cases where that can happen, and it's pretty cool that people still have that drive. They haven't been.
Yeah, they see things like Balatro.
Yeah, they haven't
and things
been
like that.
demotivated to think in those ways, and I think that gives me hope that people are still
Yeah,
willing
me too.
to want to go that path, even though things are tough these days.
Yeah. What sort of advice would you have for someone who, because I think we have a lot of listeners out there that are people that want to get into the industry and are figuring out their path to do that. And even if they want to go into UX or just design in general, like what would your advice be for someone in the year 2025 wants to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the way that I've seen things kind of evolve is that you can't really be too hyper specialized, which is kind of interesting to say, because like when I was a hiring manager at some of these companies that I worked for, that was one of the things that like we kind of needed from people. Like candidates needed to have like a very specific
specialist,
specialistic knowledge in a very narrow field, and then they needed to be like the best in class in that, and we didn't really need them to know a lot of other things because there were other people put in place to do those things, because we were a really large organization that had the ability to kind of go really deep in knowledge on each of those very kind of narrow fields of work. And I think that if someone has been in the industry for a few years and is wanting to kind of rise, up and kind of further their career and level up, in seniority and all that stuff, that is certainly a thing that you should be focusing on. But if you're wanting to enter the industry, it is tough to start with that specialization, because you don't necessarily know what will land you into the industry initially. So you might have to cast a little bit of a wider net initially. So with UX, I would say, it's better to think UX than to think UI, because UI is only one portion of many factors of thinking about the overall UX. And I would even say that maybe it's more broad than that. Maybe you are thinking about the whole field, the whole discipline of design within game development, not just the US aspect of it, but also just other types of game design roles and narrative design, level design, those type of things. And then there's the broader kind of purview of product design, being able to just be a good designer of any experience, not just something that's game related, because you don't always know what you might end up doing. Yes, you're interested in the gaming industry right now, but you might start there and then transition into a different design role, or you might start somewhere else because of the situation of not being able to land a role for the next couple of years in the gaming industry, and then get some experience there, and then jump over to the game industry. So I would say, looking into kind of this broader role of what makes a good designer of products and experiences all up, not just within games. How do you just delight players or customers of any kind in fulfilling any type of needs they might have, not just in the context of gaming. That makes it so that you have a lot of options.
Learning how to ask the right questions is a transferable skill.
Yeah.
It's like, what do our customers want? What do our players want? How do we make this more accessible for whatever our user base is, whether it's games or not games? They are all transferable skills.
Yeah. Asking the right questions and having the right mindset, realizing that even if you might be a fan of the game that you're working on or the product that you're, trying to improve, you should not feel like this is has to do with you as a person. You should put yourself out of the equation. It's not about catering to your needs. You should view anything that you want to do that would kind of like fulfill your desires as a bias and really question it. You should only be looking at the actual kind of players or the customers that you're trying to improve this for, and really view it through their eyes. Because the context, the biases, and all those things that you might have doesn't necessarily always let you take the right decisions if that's all you're trying to cater to.
That's really good advice. Before we get to your game, which I want to get to your game pretty soon because I know that you're very busy and I don't want to take up your entire day. But I reached out to like my community, like the Blue Sky community, which is a great gaming community. Like it's so much different than Twitter. Fuck Twitter. But Blue Sky is actually great. So follow me on Blue Sky. But I reached out and I was like, I'm going to be talking to someone that does UI, UX and a creative lead for Minecraft. Do you have any questions? And a lot of people came back with like, they wanted to know some feature sort of things. And I was like, I can't really ask him about that. That's funny. But
well, for two reasons, both because I don't directly work on those things. And then usually those are things that would be like, well, if that's something that we are considering doing or whatever, we can't really get into the specifics.
Yeah, of course. Like even if you did work specifically on furniture, you couldn't say what furniture is coming out. Somebody was like, asking specifically about furniture. I was like, I don't think I could ask him that, but thanks for playing.
Yeah. But a collaboration with IKEA would be perfect, right? Because it's from Sweden. Just putting that into the idea bank myself. Hint.
All the lack, like the whole lack line, which is nothing but the cubes, would be wonderful. But someone did say something really funny. They were like, ask him if he ever gets sick of cubes.
That's funny.
I was like, that's actually pretty funny. But I did have a friend that asked a great question. It's not specifically about Minecraft, but I wish that I had come up with this question, and I'm going to steal it. It's my question now, Matt. Haha. But he said, what's something that you've worked on that you'd like to share more about, but people don't really ask about all that much?
Oh, yeah. That's really interesting.
Isn't that a great question? I was like, my question now, bitch.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the thing that because I worked on the platform experience at Xbox for almost 5 years and then recently joined Mojang. So there's not a lot of like actual kind of shipped experiences under my belt at Mojang. But what I can say that kind of is related between both working on the platform side of Xbox as well as Mojang is just this like, sometimes it's hard to know, is something that we think is a great feature or an idea to invest in, is it actually a good idea or not? Because sometimes when you look at the actual, like, not what people say, but what they do, the engagement isn't necessarily there. An example is like achievements on the platform side. I know that leaders like Phil Spencer and a lot of other kind of like of these kind of folks that have come up in the industry as these like folks that used to be gamers and used to be kind of, somewhat hardcore gamers, like Phil Spencer plays a lot of games and he loves achievements. And so he was really surprised to hear that achievements is this like thing that doesn't necessarily have the data to back it up. The engagement. I
don't give a shit about achievements.
Right. Yeah.
I spend a lot of money on games. Do not give a shit about achievements.
Right. But it is one of those things where like, even if I'm just like if I'm teaching my students about the kind of like just the, how to build motivation and keep people coming back. You have to give them objectives. You have to give them something that they can aspire towards, and try to kind of package that in something that's easy to understand, that you can then maybe show off to your friends and, say, hey, this is what I've been able to do. It wasn't just wasted 200 hours in this game. I can actually have something to show for it. So all of the things in theory are there to prove its value, but then the actual kind of just the numbers of engagement aren't backing it up. So I often would love if there was a way to somehow have more of a conversation with the community about kind of the truly understanding the why behind some of that metric. Because I think if we're only reading the metric, but not getting a chance to talk to them, we just have one side of the story. And I miss it because I had a lot of that when I was working at CCP. We had these fan gatherings, these fans of the game.
EVE Online is all about the users.
Yeah. And we engaged with them directly, like on the forums. Sometimes that was, painful, but we did. We talked to them directly. And I think just at the scale that things are, after I've, started working at these other companies that have literally millions, maybe even tens of millions of users, it's harder to figure out a way to like, how do I still stay kind of connected to the community in these ways? So I guess the answer is kind of more generalized, and like, I wish there was a way for me to just have more direct conversations with a perfect example of a player of the game, to hear kind of how is this actually, how are you feeling about these features and these things, and what are the things that actually matter to you? Because a lot of the people that I get to talk to are folks that are, wanting to be in the industry or already in the industry. So their situation is going to be different, and we sometimes forget that, like we're trying to improve ways to find friends in the game right now. And a lot of the folks that I know in the industry, they already have like 5, 10, 15 friends online every time they log in. But most players have no friends. They have like at the most one friend. And so those are things we often have to remind ourselves about, so that we keep our headspace in the mindset of like, how's the situation for the majority of players, not for me and the people I know.
Interesting. I'd like to talk to you more about that.
Yeah.
Because it's a really interesting problem. Mm-hmm. And I have ideas just from the things that you've said in the past 5 minutes.
Great.
That's cool. Okay, yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll chat about that at GDC next week. But Orvar, are you ready to play a stupid little game?
I am. I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm nerve-sided.
Don't be nervous. The guest always wins.
Okay, great.
And this game is very stupid, and so I'm excited about it. But as we have talked about, you work for Minecraft, and you mentioned that there's like lots of folks in the community that you work with, and there are 1.5 million mods for Minecraft. There's a gajillion of them. So I've made a game called Modcraft.
Wow.
Where I'm gonna give you sets of 3 Minecraft mods, and 2 of them are real mods, and 1 of them are one that I have made up. And I wonder if you could choose the one out of the 3 that I have made up.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this game is going to be fun. It's going to be fun to put together. This should be easy. And then I started thinking about all these mods that I'm making up, and they all existed. Like anything. And then I was like, well, let me just try to get crazier and crazier, because there were so many mods that I was like, oh, there's this one. And then I'll check and see on, what is it, CurseForge, to see if it exists. And then I'm like, shit, that exists. What the hell? But I think I came up with a few that I hope I at least could not find that it already existed. So if any of the modders out there want to take any of these ideas that I say don't exist and make them real, then that would be really cool. I would love to actually see them if you put them in the game. So yeah, Modcraft. So I'm going to give you 3. One of them is made up. So for the first one, so there's a mod called low vocalization. Low. So it converts all dialogue and names into oh whoa and ooh woo speak. So are you do you know about oh whoa and ooh woo?
I don't know about it, but I'm pretty sure that it must be real.
Well, was okay. So owo and uwu. When I was writing this down last night, I was like, how am I going to explain owo uwu? So it's like kawaii speak. So instead of like rat, it would be a wat, and instead of nether, it'd be a nether. And everything is kind of like oh whoa and like oh woe is me and uwu. It's just like cute kawaii. Pseudo Japanese speak, and there's this whole meme of like if you can't what is it if you can't take me at my oh whoa, you don't deserve me at my uwu. It's really stupid. So that's one. The next one is, because I'm going to give you three. The next one is called Minecraft. Craft with a K, TM. So it replaces all food and consumables with boxes of Kraft macaroni and cheese. And the third one is just called Googly Eyes, because it just gives everything big old googly eyes.
Okay, wow.
So out of those three, one of them I made up.
Now I'm actually starting to think that the first one was the one you made up and the other two exist, because the other two just feel like such a, like, you know, like a no-brainer thing that has been made and probably are even like popular, like popular with the community already. So I'm going to go with that.
Well, it's Minecraft with the macaroni and cheese. That's the one that I made up. I couldn't find it, at least.
Wow.
There is.
I mean,
that's one.
That's an idea right there.
There is one that you can put macaroni and cheese in the game. Like instead of one of the food, it'll just be a mac and cheese that you could eat. But this one actually replaces with like the blue boxes of Kraft macaroni and cheese. Or if he's pulling one up on the street. I was like, do you have one with you?
It was my cat was knocking on the door. So I was just like.
You went off and I was like, oh, is he going to bring up the macaroni and cheese? Because that would be amazing.
No.
Oh, cat's good though. But yeah, so, or Kraft dinner if you're in Canada, because Kraft dinner is, oh, kitty.
Hello.
Oh, hello, kitty. Where is my cat?
He's like.
He usually bothers me. I don't know where he is right now. I call him my associate producer of the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Because
yeah,
he loves.
I should give mine a role. That I think he's he's a saboteur right now.
Yeah. I mean, they just have to get all up in your business.
Yeah.
But the low localization, the owo and oo, that's real.
Okay, wow.
It turns all speak into owo and uwu. But if anybody wants to make the Kraft mac and cheese, or like I said, and if you're in Canada, Kraft dinner, and Canada, we love you. Sorry that U.S. is being so right now. I love you, Canada.
Love Canada.
Okay, the second one.
Love my Canadian friends.
Yeah, me too. And I'm just like, every time I talk to them, I'm just like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what to say other than, I'm sorry. Please don't go to war with us. I love you. Oh my God. Okay. So the second one. So I'm going to give you three more. Mm-hmm. So there's one called Mine Hopper, which makes the frogs large enough to ride around and hop on. There's the second one is Bee Barker. Basically, you feed your dog flowers, or you can just feed them bees, and then you can pick them up and use them as a shotgun that shoots bees. And the third one is Mighty Ender Chicken. So instead of an ender dragon, you fight a huge laser-spitting chaotic chicken.
Oh, wow. Like, those two last ones, I really hope that they already exist, because like that sounds amazing. Like I would just play that right now, really. Yeah. Ender chicken, man. And then they lay eggs, and that's like the thing you take with you. Yeah. Yeah. And you can have other ender chickens. Oh man. Like, I mean, again, I hope these are real, because they're like just such good ideas. Is the being able to ride the frogs, is that your? That is mine. You're correct. Yeah. That one is really cool. I did see it was a feature request that somebody was complaining about on one of the forums when I was looking these up. There are villages that you could have, the frog villages, where that you could like talk to them, and they're like that's a mod where it's I forgot what it's called. They're like frogkins or something like that that they made up. But they're not large enough for you to like hop around on. But yeah, you're right. But there is Bee Barker and the Mighty Ender Chicken both already exist. Wow.
So you can go play those right
Yeah.
now.
Equip my bee barker and go kill the chicken dragon, ender dragon with that. That would be.
I like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just like shoot bees like a shotgun. I'm into it.
And that's what's so amazing about being part of just a little part of this like really big amazing story and ecosystem and community is this creativity that creators have. And that's the other part that my design team does as well that I didn't mention earlier is just the designers that focus on improving the tools, like the actual editor and the creator tools is stuff that my design team does. So we're more kind of in the role of creating the tools to add into the sandbox, and then the creators and the community takes those tools and makes the stories and the gameplay and the fun with them. So that's
wild.
That's
anything
so unique.
That you can think of.
And all the others, well, I mean, CCP did some of that too, but like mostly a lot of these AAA studios, a lot of the crafting of the gameplay happens internally, but then the stories are the ones that the players kind of create as they experience things together. But with Minecraft, it's kind of like both parts are things that the community puts a lot of effort into. They create the actual stories and the gameplay, and then they are also the ones that create the memories.
The longevity of Minecraft is just astonishing to me. It just keeps going. Anything that you could ever think of has been done in Minecraft. Like I remember watching about how someone made a full working computer in Minecraft.
Yeah, I saw that. That was so crazy. Yeah.
It's just things that I never would have even thought that this is something that you would be able to do inside a game. And then somebody's like, not only do I think you can do it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to spend 800 or 1,000 hours or however long it took him to do this. And the patience.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know how they do it sometimes. I'll watch these YouTube videos of creators, and they're like, so, my followers, they gave me this challenge, make a floating city. And so I was like, well, if it has to be a city, then it has to really feel like a city. So I had to make enough buildings in the sky to be able to kind of like fly through it and feel like you're flying through a full city. I'm just like, what? I don't even know if I would have the patience or the time to build one skyscraper to just be floating by itself in
Somebody made
sky.
a full New York City, full like scale New York City.
Yeah.
It's and I wonder if there has to be. I'd have to look it up. If online there's some repository of like how long it takes before something ends up being in Minecraft. Like you know how in the industry we have a thing called
time to
time. Yeah. I'm like is like time to penis, which is like a thing where if you have a game where people could do anything, it's like how long is it going to take before somebody makes a dick? I'm like, I wonder if there's like a time to Minecraft.
Right.
Like how long? Like I wonder. After Wicked came out, the first Wicked in November, I wonder how long it took before someone made the entire of like Shiz University in Minecraft. It was probably a matter of hours. Yeah, and it happens amazing.
So quickly that sometimes the folks that are kind of close to the product, we have to kind of up our understanding of like, wait, what is popular now with the kids? Like, what are they looking at on TikTok? So the time that I was introduced to Skippity Toilet was not when it was happening, but when someone was like discussing if they wanted to bring that into Minecraft. So that's how, us elderly people will sometimes discover what you should be knowing about
the
what people are talking
elder
about.
Millennials, the elder or zillennials, because I'm like right on the cusp of like millennial and Z. And so when the whole like Skibbity Toilet Ohio Riz things started happening, I was just like, what? Okay. Yeah. Good for you, kids. Have at it. Yeah. That is not for me.
But then it's like you initially are like, what? That's like, why is that a thing? But then if you start to kind of like dig into it and understand it, then you're like, okay. I mean, because as a designer of experiences, I have to be able to put myself into the mindset of the user. And sometimes I can make an argument for why something is appealing to the target audience.
You see, there's this head, and he's in a toilet.
Yeah.
And there's a whole ecosystem of heads in toilets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will it make a whole generation of kids that are less scared of toilets or more scared of toilets? That's going to be
I would say more scared. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ew.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So the third one, you're doing great so far. So let's see. The first one, trumpet skeleton. It gives all the skeletons trumpets instead of bows and arrows, and they play a little tune, which is cool. There's a Mountain Dew mod, which turns all of the river water into Mountain Dew, which replenishes your thirst like usual water, but it also gives you a temporary speed boost because of all the caffeine. And Butter Dog. It just puts a stick of butter on top of your dog.
Oh. Okay, so the Mountain Dew one is amazing, and the Mountain Dew as a drink and as a product is just so ingrained somehow in gaming culture already that
I was addicted to Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely something that is out there.
The last time I had a Mountain Dew was January 26th of 2022. I can tell you the last time I had it because I've been addicted to Mountain Dew my entire life. I started drinking it when I was a little baby child, and I have the teeth to show for it. It was a mistake, but I was always just addicted to it, and I've quit 4 or 5 different times. So I still say that I'm addicted, even though I haven't had it in like 3 years now.
Yeah.
But I still want it. Yeah. It's the best. It's great.
So yeah, I think that one is real. It's probably the first one.
The trumpet skeleton.
Yeah.
I came up with the Mountain Dew mod.
Oh, you came up with the awesome one? Jeez.
But at least I couldn't find it. There are mods that will give you Mountain Dew, like little cans of Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
But I didn't see one that actually turns all the water Mountain Dew.
And I don't know. I mean, I would have to check in with my team here, but like if a mod can also have some kind of an actual like kind of gameplay benefit. I mean, I guess when you're in like, play by yourself and all that stuff, that that should be totally possible, because I love that addition to it. It's not just an aesthetic thing. It's like now when you go into the water, you'll actually, speed up, which is amazing because, swimming just takes too long already.
I mean, if you want ideas, come at me.
I mean, I love that idea. I think that idea is just amazing. I'm pretty sure someone, if a creator is listening in, they'll just like go and build that right now.
Just do it. Yeah.
The trumpet skeletons is kind of whimsical and funny. It kind of, it just reminds me of like the funny thing that you can do just by simply, replacing assets. I don't know if you've heard of this, like folks with, phobias to spiders. You can change those.
You can turn it off.
And some games will change them into something else, but it's also scary to kind of fit the narrative and the immersion. But then you could also just like, well, what if it's just, jumping little jelly, beans or something,
I wouldn't use that because I'm not that afraid of spiders. I'm afraid of spiders enough that I want to kill it. So I think it's fun to like kill the spiders. Yeah, it's just like, oh, fuck you. But I could see like some people are just deathly afraid of spiders. And I know someone that's deathly afraid of snakes. Like you can't even mention snakes around them. And I made the mistake of like putting a photo of myself with like a snake on my head. And they were like, can you not? I'm like, I'm so sorry. Let me take that down in like Slack. But yeah, so, but also the butter dog is real. Because somebody's like, I just want to put butter on top of a dog. Cool. I'm into it.
Yeah. That's
okay. The next one. So better than bunnies. So rabbits get little top hats, monocles, and adorable little suits.
Wow.
There is one called Flesh Mod, which adds fleshy items and mobs to the game, like a flesh pickaxe or a tongue shovel. And Magic 8 Cube. So it's a Magic 8 ball in Minecraft, except it's cube instead of a ball because it's in Minecraft.
Oh, no. but then it gives you the same, like, not likely or whatever, like results when you. Okay. Wow. I'm leaning to the first one here because the
bunnies.
That one just, it sounds awesome, but it's got some additional kind of features to it, which I've started to notice a trend. Like your ideas are not just like a one thing. They're like, it's this and this other cool thing and this other amazing thing. I'm flattered. Like the monocles one, that's the one that got me. Like, I want that in my game.
Well, it turns out that one is real.
That one already exists?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's better than bunnies. There's also better than llamas. But for brevity, I just did better than bunnies. But it gives llamas and bunnies top hats, monocles, and the rabbits get little suits. I don't think the llamas get suits.
Wow.
But the rabbits get little suits. So the one that I made up was the Magic 8 cube.
Oh, wow. That one feels like something that just should already exist because...
Well, that one's I'm kind of cheating because I remember when I worked at Barnes & Noble a million years ago, it was a Minecraft Magic 8 ball, but it was a cube, but it was a real thing. It wasn't in the game. It was an actual like real thing. So I just used it for in the game, which I couldn't find. I couldn't find that existed.
Yeah.
I could only find the real one that you can now get on eBay for like a couple $100 because apparently now they're rare because they were so long ago. And people, I mean, I'm sure that people collect all the Minecraft stuff.
Yeah.
When Lego came out with Minecraft stuff, I was like, genius. Like, of course, this makes so much sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like things that you wouldn't have thought, like when you had it, like, I don't know, like as a teenager or something, and you were just like, oh yeah, this thing exists. And then it just went away. You don't even know what happened to it. It just disappeared one day. And then you're just like, okay, well, I guess that's just, gone its course. But then you see people selling those type of things on eBay. Now it's like part of this like collector's community. And it's just like, oh man, like.
I wish I still had my Transformers.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. I had Transformers in like 1986.
I had so many Transformers. I had so much Star Wars, like just the original stuff. And I had the Rancor, the big guy.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's cool.
I got Yoda stuck inside of him.
Kenner?
I couldn't get him out. So he's preserved, like he's in there untouched. But I don't know where the Rancor went. So
that's amazing. Yeah, now we could sell them and not have to work, probably. Well, we'd probably still have to work. Okay, the last one. You're doing great so far. So the last one, okay, there's Guilt Trip. Little ghosts of everything that you kill float around your head until they slowly fade away. Pancake trees. So it turns all of the trees into syrupy stacks of pancakes. And the Nick Cage mod that everything with a face will now look like Nicolas Cage. Oh. And I do mean everything.
Oh, man. That is perfect. That is, I kind of want that one to be your idea. I just think that would be so cool. I'm going to go with the last one being the...
It exists.
Oh, man.
The Nick Cage mod exists.
Oh, Nick Cage.
The one that I made up was the pancake trees. I was like, what's the stupidest thing that I can make up? But pancake trees still isn't as dumb as Butter Dog, which is real. But the Nick Cage, so I was trying to write these things and I was talking to my partner about it. Like, okay, I need ideas for things. And he was like, put Nick Cage's head on everything. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. But then I checked and it exists already. And I was like, fuck.
Oh, man.
And the pictures of it, I'll have to send you pictures of it because it's great. It literally takes like a full thing of his face and just puts it on literally everything with a face. So all the animals, all of the people, all the creepers, everything with a face gets a different Nick Cage face. It's not the same face.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's all different faces because, he is a multifaceted genius of an actor. This
wasn't just like some afterthought. This was a creator that was like, I'm gonna really do this
like
justice.
The creepers are going to be from Face Off.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's great. Well, congratulations, Orvar. You've won the game.
Yeah. That's great. I feel like I was on a downward spiral, but
nope, absolutely not. You absolutely won the game.
because the thing about the pancakes that got me is that, like, having lived in the US almost 10 years now, and both folks within the US and Canada, they just they love pancakes. They're so into pancakes.
Love our pancakes.
And so I was just like, yeah, I mean, that's already there.
Pancakes. If somebody wants to make pancake trees, go for it. Yeah. There is a mod that will give you pancakes as a consumable. It just adds. It's actually a pack that will add syrup. Anything that you put syrup on, so like pancakes and waffles and all that type of stuff, it'll just add that to the game as like little consumables. But there isn't one yet that turns it all into trees. And I was like, this is so stupid, but it's not stupider than Butter Dog. Right. I don't think anything is as dumb as Butter Dog, because it literally just puts a stick of butter on top of your dog.
Yeah. Which is like, why on top? So, why not just change the dog into butter? Then at least you're like, I don't know, petting butter. I don't know. There's a
it's just, and it's very cute too. It's just a dog with butter on top of it.
And it's so like mean, because he's probably trying to like reach it, because he wants.
I would want to eat the butter. Yeah. Butter's delicious.
And it's stuck on his back, so he can't get to it because he's.
This is why Minecraft. This is why Minecraft is so popular.
Yeah.
Butter Dog.
Yeah.
It's like the essence. If you want to take the creativity of Minecraft and boil it down into its essence and why people love it so much, Butter Dog. Yeah. Take that to your next meeting.
But in all honesty, like this is why it's so amazing to just have something that has such creativity and flexibility to it. Even working on the product, you don't even know half of the things that are available for it, because the community is so vast and people are so creative, and it's just, these are all such good ideas, even the ones that don't exist yet.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
We have made it to the end. I've taken up so much of your time, and I don't want to, because we could sit here and talk about Minecraft mods all day. And there's lots more things I would love to talk to you about, which is I'm so glad that I'm going to meet you at GDC in a little over a week. Again, this episode is going to come out while we're at GDC. So if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, Jess, let's chat, then just get a hold of me. You can actually email the pod at stupidlittlegamespod@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Blue Sky. And my Blue Sky is caketease.bsky.social. And again, it's not a sexual thing. I used to be a cake decorator, but it is cake tease. So, Orvar, where can our listeners find you if you want to be found? If you don't want to be found, that's fine.
Well, yeah. I will be at GDC this year from Wednesday to Saturday. And, if my schedule would allow, people would be able to reach me there. Otherwise, I would kind of just like say LinkedIn for me. It's kind of weird. Like, I'm in this like identity crisis with my social media. Like, I used to be on Twitter a lot back in the day, but now I'm like,
fuck that.
So
I was addicted to Twitter. I was addicted, and I had a small but like good community of people on Twitter. And I remember I just couldn't give it up. I would try to go on hiatuses, but then my partner, we were about to watch a show. I think it was like a Broadway show, and we were waiting for it to start, and I was on Twitter, and he was like, he just asked me, and it wasn't a judgment thing, but it was like how can you, with your conscience the way I know it is, still be on Twitter? And it just kind of hit me like, you're right. Like, you're right. Like, nothing that I'm getting from this platform is worth the complicity of me being on the platform when it platforms Nazis and is run by a Nazi, and like just and so I quit.
Yeah,
I quit. Thankfully, Blue Sky came along about the same time, and I was able to kind of jump ship. But yeah, like I get the whole like crisis of conscience.
Yeah,
because I had a whole community there, and I'm just like, bye, gotta go.
Yeah. So in terms of just like linking up, especially kind of from an industry standpoint, I'm pretty open to getting connected with people on LinkedIn. I love to just grow my network there and meet people, stay connected with folks in the industry. So you'll definitely find me on LinkedIn. It's a fairly unique name, kind of. I mean, there is a few people in the world named Orvar, but there's no one named Orvar Halldorsson, or Orvar Halldorsson. So if you just find me there and add a message or add, then I'll reach out. And other than that, I just kind of reside most of the year in the Seattle area. I do try to travel to Iceland and Sweden once in a while. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Anything you'd like to promote?
Just, get out there and make amazing add-ons and mods and user-generated content for games like Minecraft. That's the future. I think the future of gaming is to not just play, but also to create and enjoy kind of, contributing to a gaming ecosystem. I think that's just where things are headed. People love to be participants and not just watchers.
I also love the games that embrace the mod community, because it's going to happen anyway. So I don't understand some of these, especially some of the bigger games, and I'm not going to name any names, but are condescending or just push their mod community aside.
Yeah.
And it's like, these people care enough about your game to spend time in wanting to add to it, or they have this idea of like things that could make it better for them as a player. And you can't sell a mod because it's not your property. So they're literally doing this and giving it to people for free. And that will maybe help theirs. There's a lot of mods for accessibility, which I think is really important. And so yeah, embrace the mod community. Let's go. Yeah. Let's fucking go.
That's it.
Embrace the mod community. Cool. Well, you can follow me. I already said Blue Sky, but I am at caketease at bsky.social. I'm on Instagram at cake_tease. Thank you so much for listening. And what would be great if you could subscribe on your podcast of choice, whether it's Amazon or Apple, or all of the big companies are kind of not great, but Apple, Spotify, Amazon podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, just look up Stupid Little Games and subscribe wherever you would like to. And if you liked it, please consider leaving us a review, because it really helps us to get into the algorithm. We're still a new-ish podcast, and I've got a lot of listeners, and you guys are super great, and the reviews really, really help. So this podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Jess Pardue. The logo and theme song are by the talented Bayard Russell, and final editing and mixing are by Gabe Koski, a man who swims in jean shorts. So I'll see you next Tuesday, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.